Hey, it's Deo. I've been talking a lot about the gala piece that I've been creating, We Deserve to Live Too. And I want to tell you a story of how I met the founder of RefugePoint, the organization that's putting together the event at the Museum of Fine Art in Boston. Sasha is an incredible guy I met a few years ago. So what happened was I was at a conference in it was either 2014 or 2015 in DC. I was invited to speak at a conference that focused on how things are going in Africa. And there was a lot of NGOs and organizations that help refugees all over. And it was at the Ethiopia Center in Washington, D.C. So I am in like a lot of my speaking opportunity that I get to speak. You know, you travel, you get there, you have your message, and you got, you're trying to figure out how to tailor your message in a way that your audience is going to best connect with. So it was just me. This one, I usually have somebody with me when I travel, but this one, it was just me. And it was actually, let me just tell you the backstory real quick. I was working at a university and we were doing project-based learning targeting blue-collar workers. So that's like workers that work for hospitality, insurance, just a bunch of blue-collar jobs. And most of our students came from employer partners like McDonald's, Dunkin' Donuts, Panera Bread, UPS. We had some community organizations as well that were our partners, like Core Network. It's like an AmeriCorps program. And then I was given accounts that sometimes focused on community partners. So there was one account in Boston with the charter school called Duet. It was called it's Match, but then the program turned to Duet. My colleague Steve was overseeing that, but I did a bunch of work with him on that. So anyways, so what happened was, as the program started to grow, started to look at different population that could also benefit from an opportunity where they can earn their degree much faster, project-based. And so the organization, the college I was working for, they started to look for other opportunities. So there was a local partner. It was a refugee organization that served new immigrants. So it was a new immigrant organization. And there was an opportunity to look at if there's new immigrants that are coming in from different countries. In this case, there was a lot of Syrian, Afghanistan, and Iraqis that were resettling, that had professional careers in their home country, but either they didn't have their credentials or their credentials weren't accepted here. So the idea was that they would join our program, be able to demonstrate their skill set much faster so they can earn at least an associate degree and get hopefully better job opportunities, like working at as a line worker at a factory or something, where some of these folks were like doctors, teachers, engineers. So when they come to the States, sometimes those credentials are not honored. So they're starting from scratch, completely from scratch. So I started a pilot with a local organizations that provided services to new immigrants, where we wanted to see if the project-based learning program that we were doing with blue-collar workers all over the country could also work with these groups of people, new immigrants that have degrees and skills from their home country but are not accepted here, where they can show their skill set much faster and get their associate degree and their bachelor degree. So we started the pilot, and the pilot was successful. So we would meet with the students at the office of the organization on the weekends, weeknight, and they really created like a 360 opportunity for them, where they had access to internet and they had tutors that could help them if English was an issue. So there was an opportunity to take the program and talk about it at a national level, where other agencies could also look at the model. Potentially their students can also join the program. So we had a scheduled meeting in DC to meet with the Secretary of DHHS in the focus of refugee resettlement. So this was a big opportunity, a big meeting. We had an account manager in-house that focused on community partner, and then we also had a board member from the organization that helps refugees resettle, and we all traveled to DC to meet with the person who was in charge of refugee resettlement program for the entire US. So we get there, we talk about the model, we talk about what we're learning with the pilot that we're running, and there's a lot of excitement around this opportunity, because the whole point is when people are resettling to America, if they have credentials from their home country, like, you want to get them in the system and try to utilize their skill set as much as possible. So there was a lot of interest to see what we learned from the pilot and how this could be scaled across the entire country. So that was exciting. I mean, it was a really exciting opportunity to go to that meeting. One of the deputy director, when they read my bio, we all had our bio, so they had it ahead of time. When he read my bio, he was really drawn to my story and the work that I do at the college, but also independently with my speaking and consulting. So he was really drawn to that, and he mentioned that he got my information and he would love to connect with me at some point. I was really, at that time, I was really young. I was 25 years old, and I was really used to, like, a lot of my opportunities came from things like that, where someone would meet me, they learn that, like, I do this, or I create stuff, I teach dance, I perform, or I speak, and there's a lot of cross references that will happen where someone's like, hey, we would love to work with you on something, whatever. So I wasn't really like super shocked that he showed interest in the work that I do at the college, but also outside of the college. The meeting was awesome. I felt like, wow, this is a great opportunity that we got a chance to go talk about this program at the national level, and they're interested in, scaling, seeing if there's an opportunity to introduce it to other organizations all over the country. So I came home. So I always like to tell the backstory, because sometimes in life there's a lot of moving parts before something happens within its face value. So I wanted to tell that backstory first. So come home, I think it was like 3 weeks after the meeting in DC, I get an email from the deputy director, and he says, hey Deo, I don't know if you remember me, we met in DC when you and your team came to present about the program that you're doing with workforce. I was given an opportunity to speak at this conference, and I'm not available, but I thought about you right away, that you would be a great speaker to come out and present with the work that you do, but just holistically. And when I read that email, I was shocked. I was like, what? Because you meet a lot of people, and people are always like, oh, we're going to get back. And this, so like, you never really know, like, if that's really going to happen. But this dude thought about me after he was invited to speak at a conference in DC, and then emails me. So, being that I was excited. I was like, wow, this is a great opportunity. Like, visibility to talk about the program, to talk about the work that I'm doing. So here's how it gets interested, right? I go to my boss and I said, hey, that meeting we went to in DC like a couple of weeks ago? She's like, yeah. I'm like, well, the deputy director for refugee resettlement just emailed me to speak at a conference. I do have to be transparent. Like, they want me to speak holistically about my experience as a former refugee and the work that I do now. Yes, I am. If you don't know, I am a former refugee. I grew up in the Congo. My family and I moved to the States when I was 10 after my father was assassinated. So I do have that background. I lived in a refugee camp for about a year, which is wild because most of the time people stay in refugee camps for like 17, 20, 24 years before they ever get a chance to resettle. So my family and I, we only lived in a refugee camp for a year. So, and I've been telling my story since I was 11 years old. So, but anyway, so when I told my boss, I said, hey, they want me to present holistically. So my boss was like, Deo, this is great. This is really awesome that they invited you to speak. Let me go talk to our chief marketing, and yeah, at the time it was chief marketing officer, about this opportunity to get their perspective and see if it makes sense for this to be something work related. So she goes to speak with him, and somehow he didn't think that it was connected to the program. I'm like, I'm going to be talking about the pilot program that we're doing right now in Manchester. But anyway, that's politics, right? So a lot of the stuff like that happens in an organization all the times, where when power is given to somebody and they have to make a decision on something, like it's up to them in their lens to see how that thing benefits the organization. And that's what I learned along the way as I've worked for so many different organizations, nonprofits, startups. The power dynamic is like a big factor in how people see stuff. And I've been independent for the last almost 8 years, working on my own, running my own business, having a team of people that work with me, and and I've learned a lot throughout that process. But yeah, so he shut it down. He said, oh no, we don't think. So I told my boss, I was like, hey, I know you support this, but I'm gonna do this independently, not through the college. I'll just go and do it through my own stuff. She's like, that's fine. So that's how the journey starts. I know I've told a bunch of story before even getting to the Sasha part, the director of RefugePoint, that I'm performing at their gala, 20th gala in Museum of Fine Arts in Boston. But I wanted to give that back end story so you understand the context. So it comes time for me to go to the event. So I fly out. I think it might have been a day trip. I fly out early in the morning, get to DC, going through my keynote was middle, so it was like during lunch. It was after lunch. That was my keynote was. So at the conference, there's folks from everywhere that are doing work here in the state with former refugees, that are doing work trying to help refugees resettle. So I'm sitting in this table. So on the table, there's the agenda and pictures of all the speakers that are going to be speaking. And this guy comes up to me. So this is Sasha. So he comes up, he said, hi, I'm Sasha. I shake his hand. He's like, I run an organization based out of Massachusetts called RefugePoint, but we do a lot of work in Africa, helping people become refugees and helping them resettle. So I was like, okay. And then he goes, I think we've met before. I was like, what? So I was kind of shocked by that. So I'm like, I don't think we met before. He's like, well, what camp were you in when you were a refugee? I said, I was in Benin. Benin is in Western Africa. So he goes, I was in Benin in late 90s. I was working for IOM, International Office of Migration, and I was stationed for a project that was required, that encompasses of some people that were in Kinshasa in the Congo that were trying to be taken out of Congo and moved to Benin. And when I got involved, so this is him telling me the story. He said, when I got involved, there was already a group of people that already moved, got out of the capital and moved to Benin. So as he's telling me this, like, I get chills all over my body because, mind you, at that point, I've been in the state for 15 years. And I have never, ever, ever met anybody that was on the other side of my story. So what that means is my family and I got selected to move from the refugee. Well, first it was we got out of where we were living, moved to a secret refugee camp in Kinshasa, stay there for about three to 4 months, and then moved from Kinshasa to Benin, Western Africa, and then moved to America. So up to that point, I've never met anybody that was in the other side. So that means I've never met somebody that was an NGO, a non-governmental agency that worked as part of the program and the project that helped my family get out and move to the States. Yes, obviously, when we were in the refugee camp, there were hundreds of people that were refugees that were part of that journey with us, and I've met plenty of them over the years as they've moved around and lived in different places in America. So in terms of like me having ownership to the story of what happened to my family, like beyond my family and other people that are refugees, I've met them. So I knew that what we went through existed, right? Because sometimes you go through stuff and you don't really know. Like over time, you're like, was this just a story that I told myself that happened, or did something else happen? But what I didn't have was the story of my family getting out of the Congo from the perspective of a non-governmental organization that actually participated and helped to get me and other people out of the Congo. So when Sasha comes up to me at that conference and says, I think I've met you before because I was involved with this program, and I also traveled to Benin several times. And I was like, this is wild. Like this. So I got emotional and I showed a lot of interest, but I couldn't really make one and two together. But he did say enough to convince me that there was a chance that I've met him. But also he was connected to the mission that led to my family getting out of the Congo. So he told me a story. He's like, when I was hired for the project, my boss told me that there was this wild idea that was put together of helping some refugees to get out of Kinshasa, which is the capital of Congo, and move to another refugee camp in Western Africa. He's like, when he told me the story, it was like a wild story. Like there was a bunch of refugees that were in a secret camp that nobody knew about, and then they betted on convincing the Congolese government to let them out, and the Congolese government said yes. 2 rounds of that group moved, and then there was a last round that they were asking me. Part of my job was to go back to Kinshasa in the Congo and help that last group to move. So he's telling me this. So when we've told our story, we've always told the story from like understanding the risk that it had, right? That we lived in this secret camp in Kinshasa, in the capital of Congo, and nobody else knew about us except a few people. And there was a chance that the plan wasn't going to work to try to get us out of Kinshasa as refugees. So we've always, that's what we knew, but I didn't really understand how dramatic and how much of a chance the whole plan was. I didn't really grasp that until Sasha's telling me the story, and I'm like, holy crap. Like, as a young man, a lot of the story that my mom was telling me when she was dealing with the NGOs and trying to figure out how to get us out, I just thought that, I don't know, I didn't really, but anyway, so he's telling me the story. So I'm sitting there like, wow, like, we betted on a chance that this was ever going to even happen. Like, just the thought and idea of being part of this group and then eventually being selected. Like, my mom risked everything for that, and it actually worked. So when Sasha's telling me the story, Sasha's like, yeah, my boss was telling me that, you know, there was a slight chance for this to work, but it worked. We got 2 groups of people out of the Congo, and then there's the last group. So my family were actually part of the first group that was taken, that was selected to get out. So we were part of the first group, and so, which is wild. So I get emotional. I'm excited to meet him. We share a contact. I get his phone number, I get his email, and he said, hey, I would love to have you come and visit my team and I in Boston at some point. I was like, yeah, I would love to. And he's like, I actually have photos from the camp that I would love to, you know, to show you. I was like, yeah, you know what? Like, we'll find a time to come. And then he asked me how my brothers are doing, how my mom is doing. So I'm pumped. I'm excited. I get validated after 15 years of never meeting anyone that was on the other side of my story. I finally meet somebody that tells me my story from his perspective that reflects my story of what I went through. I go out, call my mom, and tell her, hey, you're not going to believe this. I met this gentleman named Sasha, and she remembered Sasha because Sasha was part of the group of different NGO people that were going around trying to help the families in order to increase the likelihood of the families getting resettled. So she's like, oh, I remember Sasha. I can't believe you didn't remember. I was like, Mom, I just met him. So I was emotional. I was like completely like just shocked by the experience. And so in life, like, people go through like a lot of different experiences, traumatic experiences, and we find different ways to cope with the reality of what we're going through. And sometimes over time, aspect of those stories might become fictionalized or fantasized, or it's not as real anymore. Even though it happened, it might not be as real anymore because it's behind you, right? You've overcome it, you've moved forward. And so for me, my family and I early on went through so much that, you know, years and years later, like, sometimes like it's hard to believe that what you actually went through is what you went through, right? Like, in a very short period of time, from 97 to 2000, that's really everything happened. 97, the rebels took over. Kabila became the president in the Congo. My father lost his job, who was working with the previous government, Mobutu. And then Kabila welcomes all the ex-government officials together. My father starts working with them. My father gets deployed, and then he gets captured and accused of treason, ends up getting assassinated with 13 other government officials. We lose everything, our house, our money, everything, our family. My dad's side of family gives my mom an ultimatum and asks her to give her the children. My mom says no. We start living in a small little shack with the distant family and family members of my mom's side of family. We're living in an area where the roof has holes on it. When it rains, the rain falls on us. We're sharing a room with 2 other families. Like, and we go through a lot of traumatic stuff that happens throughout that time. And then my mom finds a group of people that are willing to help us to get out of the Congo. We decide to become refugees. We get to the secret refugee camp where no one else knows. And then there's a crazy plan that happens of how to get these people out. We get selected. We move out to Benin, and we stay in Benin for only a year. And then we get resettled to the richest country on earth, United States. All of that happened within a 3-year time frame. And then we move to the States and try to figure out how to navigate life. We don't know anyone here. We got limited of resources through the social services, and we have to start from scratch. And we find friends, develop friends. Those friends help us, and every momentum we make, it helps us to move forward and develop and continue to move forward. So then, you fast forward that. I go to college, graduate college, start working. I'm working for this amazing program where I'm learning a lot, focusing on workforce development for blue-collar workers. I have community partners that I'm working with. I'm running a pilot with the school in Rwanda. And then I get opportunity to speak in different places. I meet the Deputy Secretary of Office of Refugee Resettlement. He invites me to go to a conference to speak. I go to speak. I meet this guy who knew my story. Like, at that point, that's my story condensed, and to be able to experience that, it was like a crescendo climax of my life. It almost paused everything to realize, like, holy crap, like, at that moment in 2015, it's like I only exist in this moment at this time because of set of events that happened that benefited my family, that increased the likelihood for us to still be alive, which led to us moving to America and experiencing everything we experienced. And now I'm meeting this guy who was on the other side of my story. So I go back home. I'm really emotional about the whole experience of meeting Sasha. And then we ended up reached out to each other, and we found a way to connect. So here's how the story, here's the crazy part of the story, okay? My brother and I, Vinny, we go to Boston to meet with Sasha and his team. We go and we meet with Sasha and his team. And Sasha has his album. He has his photos that from his time in Benin. So he comes out. He's like, "Hey, Deo, I want to show you some photos." So he opens the package where all the photos were, and I'm looking through the photos, and I'm like, "Yep, that's definitely Benin. That's Pomase. That's the refugee camp where we were in." And I'm having this nostalgic moment as looking at I'm looking at the structure in the background. I'm looking at the dirt. I'm like, wow, this is really. He's like, look through them and see if there's any of the photos if you see anybody or. So we're looking through the photo, and then we come across this one photo, and I'm gonna put it on the screen so you can see it. And I look to the bottom. I cannot believe it. I see my brother Vinny, and mind you, Vinny's with me. Vinny's my brother who follows me, so he's with me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Sasha, that's Vinny. He's like, no way. And then I'm like, Vinny, that's you. And then I look up, I'm also on the photo, standing up, and I have my hand like this. And I cannot believe it. Sasha and I were in the same place in Benin. He took a photo of me and my brother, and he had that photo in his album. And the same goosebumps that I got when Sasha was telling me the story originally, when I saw him in DC, is even more goosebump by seeing that, like, he was there with me. And life is wild, life is just, there's so many things that play around in life that informs and impacts who we are. And for me, like, that was really a moment of complete nostalgia of like, wow, this dude was there with me at some point. And here we are connecting at that point 16 years later. And so that's how the relationship between Sasha and I started, is after we connected, and we've done a bunch of stuff together. He wrote a book. I did some tour with him when he was promoting his book about the story of how he helped the last group of refugees in Kinshasa get out of Kinshasa. It's an awesome book. And so we've stayed in touch over the years. We've done different stuff. And then with their 20th anniversary, he reached out to me to create a piece that could be showcased at their 20th anniversary gala that I've been working on. So that's the story of Sasha and I. And I encourage you, like, the moments and times that you've had in your life that's been critical, it's been critical for a moment, for a reason. And I think it's really important to capture those so you can use it as a perspective grounding, but also as an energizing, boostful experiences, because those moments are so critical. Yes, they're behind us, but some of those moments shapes how we move forward, and sometimes it shapes it negatively, sometimes it shapes it positively. But it is important to have those reflections to help you figure out what does that mean for you where you are now and how you move forward. So I hope you find this helpful, insightful. Have a great day. Persevere to excel. Go get it.